Will be called one at a time, and as your time begins to wind down, the microphone will begin to blink when you have 30 seconds left. Those who were not able to attend in person were able to submit their written testimony along with their registration, and it will be included in the public record and posted to the district website following tonight's meeting. Our stakeholders can view tonight's public hearing by clicking the link at the top of our district's homepage. And with that, we will proceed to our first reader.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. And our first speaker this evening is Annette Sullivan.
The other day, a neighbor asked where my daughter goes to school. I said she goes to the local public, Colfax. Our neighbor said she'd heard negative things about PPS. My kid was there and spoke up enthusiastically. My school is amazing. And she let our neighbor know about how wonderful her Colfax experience has been. Colfax is a star school this year in the top quarter of Pennsylvania schools for student growth, not scores, but growth. A school that is good at growing kids does not form in a year or two. It becomes excellent with time as the school staff, aftercare, volunteers, and parents learn to work together, getting to know the quirks of their kids, their building, and their community. I have watched the PPS videos, attended the open houses, read the documents, and I still do not understand why Colfax, a fully enrolled K-8 school, is scheduled to be chopped apart and partially closed. Colfax has many ESL families. More families and parents are ESL than the actual counted number of ESL kids because kids learn English fairly quickly and then don't need ESL services. Planned translations were only available in a few languages, and I've heard that there are over 80 languages spoken within PPS as a whole. The messaging used difficult to translate words like facilities, utilization, Alderdice, feeder, and learn about the base scenario. I believe that there are families at Colfax and likely to other schools who have no idea about what is going to happen. They have not been heard from and not been counted. The changes suggested for PPS as a whole is staggering. So much that has been built will be broken. Long-term teacher teams will be split, friends torn apart, aftercare and community connections severed, more kids transported by unreliable buses instead of walking, PTOs will have to reform, and construction projects need to complete. I fear for Pittsburgh's children during this transition. Perhaps in the far future, PPS schools will be better with this plan, but it is our kids right here, right now, that will suffer through the transition of 16 schools closing and many others reconfigured. School board members, please slow this down. If the consultants give you a 5-year plan, please double, triple, quadruple that. Close or reconfigure only one school a year so the full focus of PPS and Pittsburgh can be on each school community who will experience loss and disruption. Focus on one school at a time to make sure and get this right. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And next, we will have Julia Dixon Ernest.
Hi, I'm the parent of a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old who we had planned to attend Colfax K-8 next year. We believe in public education in our family. We bought our house specifically to attend Colfax, then Alderdice. For their strong academics, their community, and important for our single-car family, the walkability. Many Colfax students attend a local after-school program with a walking bus, where elementary school students hold hands as they walk from school to the JCC. This is a valuable community program that allows our children to be cared for while their parents work that would not be possible under the proposed facilities utilization program. We purchased our house trusting in PPS, and unfortunately, the process of this plan has my family questioning that trust and the best educational path forward for our children. This plan has been rushed and lacks community buy-in, and that's not the relationship that students and their families deserve to have with their school district and school board. The plan is proposing tremendous hardships on the children of PPS and their families with no clear data, evidence, or specifics for what they will get in return and how their education will be improved. How will academic opportunities increase? Will there be smaller class sizes in these mega schools? Today, Colfax kindergarten classes have 30 students each, and the 6th grade class has sizes up to 33 students. The plan lacks evidence to support the grade reconfiguration, which is the primary reason alterations are being made to the DICE feeder pattern. We love the K-8 model. We love that both of our children will be in the same school, supporting each other, having the security and stability of familiar teachers, staff, and families, especially during those tricky middle school years. We love that our family can walk to school each day, attend events, volunteer during recess, and participate in the PTO. This plan lacks a transportation plan. At Colfax, we have 70% of students that are walkers. Under the proposed changes, most of those will now need busing, putting a strain on an already strained transportation system. Further expansion of the walk zones will create hardships for our littlest learners. The plan for the Alderdice feeder pattern is not the solution to the district's budgetary problems. Remodeling Colfax to make it appropriate for middle schoolers and busing students further from home is going to cost the district money. Today, I'm here to plead with you to focus your energy, resources, and transportation for the areas with the greatest need for change. We have thriving K-8 schools in the DICE feeder pattern that offer enrichment and engagement. Please don't fundamentally change those schools for the sake of change. Instead, invest those financial resources you intend on using for renovations into our students, into our teachers, and into air conditioning in our schools so our students can stay in school and their parents can get to work. Thank you for considering.
Thank you for your testimony. And next, we'll have Jeffrey Dixon Ernest.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Dixon Ernst, and like my wife, I'm speaking to you today as a parent of a pre-kindergartner and a preschooler, which is to say I'm speaking for two kids too young to speak for themselves about something that is going to dramatically affect them throughout their formative years. PPS and the Board of Education are barreling headlong toward drastic changes to our entire school system on a rush timeline. But just 6 months ago, the board approved a 5-year strategic plan that called for planning school consolidations and reconfigurations over a 3-year period starting now. What is the rush? That strategic plan has the following objectives and initiatives related to optimizing resources. And I'm just reading what's in the plan here. 1, implement district-wide grade level requirements for minimum program offerings across all schools. 2, analyze existing specialized programming and magnets to establish a way to provide equitable offerings district-wide when consolidating schools. 3, assess district-wide facility and program costs, establishing financial protocols for consolidation recommendations that support academic excellence and financial sustainability. And 4, develop standardized, student-centered metrics and a rubric to evaluate the building portfolio. All of those are sound, evidence-based prerequisites to changing our school's physical footprints and configurations. And they give parents and the community members confidence that the decisions being made are the right ones. But the current FU plan does not include any of these. It has no detail or data about how equitable offerings will be provided in any school, or give minimum program offerings by grade level. Even though it is just a collection of consolidation recommendations and closures, it doesn't use any financial protocols or even account for cost. And it doesn't establish or follow any standardized student-centered metrics to show how it supports delivering academic excellence into the future. Why is the board even considering something so far out of step with the strategic plan they just approved earlier this year? Why not tell PPS the assignment is incomplete and they need to take the time to do it right? Moving forward on a proposal that doesn't have a budget, that doesn't show how academic excellence will be delivered equitably, let alone all the other shortcomings you're going to hear about today, is not putting students first in any way, now and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And next, the next speaker is Karen Sloan.
So, back this month with a hug for a Montessori rug. I am so incredibly grateful for PPS that they offer Montessori education, and I long for the least segregated, healthiest Montessori education possible in Pittsburgh. And tonight, I'm highlighting the current failures of anti-racism at Montessori. Incidents like several elementary educators carefully plan lessons to gently and appropriately broach topics of racism, being pulled, including a staff leader apparently suggesting that they are best to avoid teaching about racism, because what if the parents don't think racism is wrong? Okay, quote, that's there. I don't know what to say about that. And also, the new hiring for staff that was done with all the open positions this summer, including the one left by the removal of our only lead black teacher, who still very much wants to come back, and our part-time librarian, a black teacher moving on to other openings. And there were so many other things that were open, and they were all filled, thank you, but none of those positions were filled by black professionals. Now, our longtime principal is the person most responsible for hiring staff, and they have now clearly a track record of not hiring black teachers, and a long track record of sending black teachers away. At least that's what the data would indicate. And leading a school culture where age-appropriate lessons on racism are not offered. And most distressing to this mother's heart is its failures to support children struggling with racial tensions in their classrooms, who end up being segregated from interacting without further restorative follow-up to support relationships. Such recently happened in an upper grade classroom at Montessori that is full of white presenting children and a handful of black children. So I want you, if you're willing, to picture two of these children in your mind. Two beautiful, much loved, energetic boys. One boy has dark skin, short hair, dark eyes. One boy light skin, shaggy hair, light eyes. And on a school field trip, on the school bus last spring of a field trip, the light-skinned boy mumbled some remarks that others around thought were racist. And back in their classroom, everyone's upset, wanting the incident addressed. There is yelling and there is crying. And when the dust settles, one consequence is that the boys of two different skin colors are told to keep apart from one another, reinforced by strict sitting on opposite ends of the classroom. And yet, what did the boys learn other than segregation? It's like we have this rug that can only hold so much. Lessons about racism, swept under the rug. Driving away black educators and hiring white staff in their place, swept under the rug. Under-resourced responses to kids struggling with racial tensions at school, swept under the rug. I have to say, if nothing else, I want Stephanie Lapine back and help. Otherwise,
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your testimony. And our next speaker is Shirley Ann Hill.
I have followed the public hearings regarding the unfair treatment of former Montessori teacher Miss Stephanie Lapine by Principal Kelly Meyer. Throughout my 41-year career with PPS, I too was subjected to principals like her. Why is she not held accountable? The parents/guardians and students have voiced their concerns about Kelly Meyer, and all you do is conveniently transfer Ms. Stephanie Lapine to another school, and Kelly Meyer remains at Montessori. She should be placed on special assignment and prohibited from working in any school. Kelly Meyer should reevaluate her career in education. Schools do not need toxic principals like her. The Montessori students and parents/guardians deserve better. Don't give up the fight to get Ms. Stephanie Lapine back to Montessori where she belongs. Carrick High School has a very small percentage of black teachers. I quote, study after study shows achievement among students of color rise if they are taught by a black teacher who looks like them. Yet the percentage of black teachers working in public schools is around 7% nationwide. End quote, this is from Word in Black, July 5th, 2024. Black students at Carrick matter. Computer application should be a mandatory business elective class for all incoming freshmen. During my time at Carrick, some English teachers, CTE, ITL, and CTE director have indicated the importance of this class. Freshmen are not getting the necessary skills in middle school. When it is time to do a project, some of them are lost. While at Carrick, I have helped students many times navigate through the necessary software to complete their projects. Quite often, teachers require students to do projects that utilize Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. These skills are beneficial to students beyond high school. I'm done.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we'll have Jacob Tannenbaum.
What is the problem, and how does the FU plan solve it? People have been asking these questions since the plan was announced, and we're still waiting to hear the answers. And now we're hearing that a vote to close schools could come next month. Why is this plan being rushed out? We have all attended the meetings where public comment made clear how underbaked this plan is. Concerned citizens have asked countless questions, and the answers from the administration have been superficial. Where is the budget? Where is the transportation plan? We have only ever been presented with a single scenario. What alternatives have been considered, and what metrics were selected to evaluate them? It seems that the goalposts are always moving. One time you said that this plan would improve equity, but you certainly haven't made the case how closing so many neighborhood schools attended by people of color would improve equity. One time you said this would reduce costs, but you haven't explained how a massive increase in busing would reduce costs. Furthermore, a study from Pew Charitable Trust's Philadelphia Research Initiative showed very little cost savings with similar school closings. By ERS's own admission, similar plans they have proposed have even increased costs. And we haven't even talked about the hidden costs of disruption to school aftercare. Finally, one time you said this would improve facilities, and yet you plan to shutter Lincoln Pre-K through 5 even after its air conditioning system is installed this year. With this proposal, you plan to upend the lives of Pittsburgh students, faculty, staff, and parents. And what benefits would any of us see in return for this disruption? And what are the details of your plans to lay off district employees? What happens when Pittsburgh's population inevitably rebounds and you've auctioned off all the school buildings? Why is this plan being rushed out? What is the problem, and how does this solve it?
Thank you. Next speaker, Tara Tucci Exilius. So we will move on. Our next speaker is Jeanette Dow.
I'm here to express my concern about two parts of the facility use plan. The first being a blanket decision to move away from the K-8 school configuration, and the second being leaving communities without elementary schools to anchor their students. ERS relayed they were going to make decisions based on the different needs of schools and communities within PPS, and so far they have not. They have proposed one plan and applied it across the district. For one, there is equally strong and robust research surrounding the benefits of K-8 school configurations, especially in urban school districts. They allow for continuous academic and social-emotional growth for students with adults they know and trust. The K-8 model benefits students' mental health, and less transitions between elementary grades and middle school grades is again shown to be incredibly valuable for students in urban schools, creating a stable and supportive community environment. K-8 schools like Colfax pull together a large student population, so there are enough resources to provide an enriching school environment, but each class within the school is smaller. Teachers and staff know students by name and have the ability to build individual support that follows and grows with a student. Students at Colfax are part of a support network and wider community supported by parents, community members, and integral aftercare organizations. Schools like Colfax anchor their communities. The importance of having a strong elementary presence in a community and the emotional and academic stability that offers to a student cannot be ignored. Research repeatedly shows that feeling connected to the school and feeling a sense of belonging feeds directly into academic performance and the sense of safety a student feels. skills. K-8 schools like Colfax lean into that sense of belonging and provide a connection to peers, staff, families, and community, not just through elementary years, but through the middle school years as well. Specifically pulling elementary students away from their community support, like is proposed with many of the changes to grade configuration and school closures, ignores the foundational role community-based programs play in student outcomes, as well as the negative effects communities suffer both emotionally and economically when elementary programs are closed or relocated. We need ERS to provide more detailed data on how closing schools and replacing them with large elementary and middle schools will lead to greater student success. We have also not been presented with a budget guaranteeing services at these new larger schools. By that, I mean increased staff, counselors, individuals that have the capacity to care for and follow up with struggling students through meaningful interventions and mental health care in large student body populations, especially in middle schools. At the core of all this, there has been a distinct absence in plans for how communities and after-school programs will be supported through these changes. We need more details and concrete investments in communities and infrastructure to move forward. I urge ERS and the school board to preserve K-8 school configurations and reconsider their plan to move elementary schools from communities and instead take a close look at how belonging and supportive communities lead to the academic success of students in K-8 schools.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker tonight is Jennifer Rose.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Rose. I'm a parent of 2 Colfax students. At the last meeting, I spoke to you about Colfax as a successful K-8 school and my concerns for the loss of a neighborhood K-5 school in the Squirrel Hill, Point Breeze neighborhoods. Though I appreciate the additional month that has been taken for ERS to review public comment on the facilities utilization plan before they release a final plan, there's still a tremendous amount of confusion regarding the school board's next steps and when they will occur. I'm an attorney and I review the law and I review procedure for a living. In my work, I take considerable care to draw a roadmap for my clients so they know what to expect next. My shaky understanding is that the board will review the final plan on October 15th and then hold an agenda meeting that sets the next legislative meeting for possibly the following week on October 23rd. But I'm struggling to truly understand the timeline and the process and what that means. My request is that the board issue a public statement summarizing what exactly will be up for vote following the release of the final plan. Something concise and in plain English, a roadmap that we can follow that answers the following questions. Will the October 23rd meeting include a vote to start the process for closing schools? If yes, give the public a roadmap. Tell them a yes vote would be followed by a 3-month public comment period before a final vote, then followed by the approval of the Department of Education. Will that be all or nothing? Does every school on the list have to be closed, or can you pick and choose? I don't understand. Will the board be adopting a reconfiguration plan to change the configuration of schools at the October 23rd meeting? If the board is not adopting a reconfiguration plan, will the district be sharing a proposed reconfiguration plan prior to adoption by the board with an opportunity for public comment? How long will the public comment period last? School reconfiguration interrupts education in the same way that school closures interrupt education. The K-5 children at Colfax and other reconfigured schools will have their schools closed, even though the building will remain open. They will experience the same trauma as if their building were to close as they are bused to new schools outside of their neighborhoods. We need clarity regarding when or even if opportunities will be given for parents to review a reconfiguration plan prior to adoption by the board. There are 3 months of public comment for school closures. What time period will families who attend reconfigured schools have to review and comment on a proposed reconfiguration plan? Not sharing a proposed plan or being given sufficient opportunity to comment is a backdoor means of changing schools with no opposition and certainly goes against the district's promise of a transparent process. We are your clients. Please draw us a roadmap. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we will have Lauren App.
Good evening.
My name is Ellis, and now I'm 4, and I'm also in pre-K. I still have to. What do I do now?
Are you done?
No.
Okay. Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. I'm now the parent of 3 PPS students, including a brand new pre-K student. Shout out to Miss Christine and Miss T for all they do and for making a great start to the year. Tonight, I would like to focus on a quote from Board President Gene Walker, "What is most important?" Last month, I said that without reason being given as to why an option for virtual participation no longer exists, that we are left to assume that the reason is that our voices are not of interest to the board. Instead of being responsive to the massive, can you hold it still? Instead of being responsive to the massive cry from the community for inclusivity and accessibility, the only response we have heard is a quote from President Walker in a WESA article from August 28th that it just makes sense for us to bring a bit more structure to how we're doing these meetings. I'd like to understand what structure was lacking when virtual testimony was an option, and I'd like to ask why administrative members of the district can participate virtually but not the stakeholders whose children and communities are on the line. Further, President Walker acknowledged that eliminating the virtual option makes it more difficult for some to attend, but that we all prioritize what's most important, and that if it's important, we will figure out a way. Honestly, I found myself speechless in reading those comments. Again, I myself am fortunate to be able to be here tonight, but it's not that it's more important to me than to any other parent. This is not about priorities for the parents who wish to be heard by their elected representatives who are...
Mama, I need to say something too.
Okay, let me finish real quick. Wish to be heard by their elected representatives who are, in my experience, the only way to get response from the district. For 2 separate incidents that required the attention of someone higher than my children's principal, I have reached out to assistant superintendents with no response. Who has replied to me? The representatives of my children's schools, Directors Talaferro and Barker. Several speakers last month gave the district the benefit of the doubt regarding this change. It's okay, we all make mistakes, change it back. But President Walker's comments fly past this being an oversight or an error and disrespect families in this district who have most often been left out of the crucial conversations that impact them the most. This is just another obstacle for them and for all of us.
And also, yeah.
Thank you for your testimony. And next, we will have Beth Sandell.
Good evening. I come to you as a PPS parent and also an educator and education researcher. In each of these capacities, I am deeply concerned about the potential effects of the FU plan and the process by which we got here. I want to start by naming my frustration around both the superintendent and the consultant's use of the term equity. There is nothing I want more for this district than better and more equitable schools. But a plan does not contribute to equity simply because someone creates a video to say that it does. There are large bodies of research on how to work towards excellence and equity, lowering class sizes, investing in high-quality early childhood programming, incentivizing high-quality teachers, and recruiting and retaining teachers of color, community engagement and community schools, and equitable funding schools, to name a few. Instead, this plan is a one-size-fits-all model that will create school deserts in communities of color. And beyond that, this process and speed of this proposal has exacerbated mistrust in the district. Anyone who has experienced or studied rapid reforms like this can tell you this proposal will result in an increase in charter schools and a rapid exodus from the district. Both of these things will deplete our already stretched budget with dire effects on schools and the kids they serve. So until you can provide meaningful evidence that this will lead to equitable outcomes, I ask you to stop using the term to promote an attempt to protect this proposal. I also urge each board member tonight to vote no on any school closures until Dr. Walters can provide the following. First, we want accurate and adequate data on the projected outcomes of each aspect of the proposed plan and how they will improve our schools. We also want, in addition to data, specific plans on enrollment, budget, ESL, special ed, staffing, transportation, and instruction models before we start closing. Second, I implore you to create more opportunities for authentic community input, not broken and poorly designed surveys and town halls. Without meaningful data, these town halls do nothing but encourage parents to speak from their own anecdotal experience. And while individual experience matters, we need to be making decisions for public schools about the collective good. There are so many meaningful ways that we could be capitalizing on our community's brilliance, gathering feedback and new ideas to do exactly that. Not doing so is an incredibly missed opportunity. Third, we need a comprehensive equity audit where we need to address where there are needs and opportunities for us to redistribute resources in a way that will adequately ensure we're reaching all students, especially students of color, and we need to identify pockets of brilliance. I cannot hear this be called a plan for equity and see a school like Fulton be closed. I know there are real problems in the district that need to be addressed, but President Walker insisting that this process has not been rushed, I would argue that it has been, and it seems like a classic rapid-fire power grab. Finally, please press pause, repair relationships and trust, collect the data that we demand, and that will help us to truly and collectively address the very real issues we face. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Kathleen O'Brien. Once again, Kathleen O'Brien. We will move to our next speaker, Vanessa Degavarian.
Hi, I would like to read from an article on Education Week by Libby Stanford. Students who attend a school that closes in their K through 12 career have lower test scores along with worse attendance and behavior in the short term. In the long term, they're less likely than their peers to complete college, have a job, and their earnings tend to be lower. School closures disproportionately impact students of color and students from low-income families. I hope that you are all familiar with Jonathan Kozell, the dedicated public school advocate and author. Well, he has personally endorsed our fight to keep public schools here in Pittsburgh open, and here are a couple of quotes from him. "We must invest in our schools, not only with money, but with compassion and dedication." And then to the community, let's concede that we have decided to let our children grow up in two separate nations and lead two separate kind of lives. If, on the other hand, we have the courage to rise to this challenge, to name what's happening in our city schools, then we also need the courage to be an activist and go out and fight like heck to change it.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Max Slater. Once again, Max Slater. We'll move to the next speaker, Stephen Winslow. Once again, Stephen Winslow. We'll keep moving. Lily Ahmed.
Hello again, my name is Lily Allman, and I would much rather be at home taking a quick break to do my testimony instead of standing here. But thanks to Mr. Walker, here we are. If any of you have a question as to why my testimony is titled "I Don't Believe You Aren't Listening," you can ask yourselves if you've heard any of us last month on that point alone. But the fact that we're here and not at home, I'm guessing not. Here's some other reasons why I titled it that this month. A few weeks ago, students at my school were asked to do a survey. I'm confused. I thought that we would be doing a survey or having conversations around our ideas and concerns with the school closures and consolidations. What we actually got was a survey that asked us about adding more sports clubs and sports and how important it is to have school close by, or how important it is to have a new building. It never explained what actually happens with the proposal. It didn't ask us about curriculum options or expanding into CTE programs we may be interested in. It didn't ask us what we wanted to prioritize in the proposal or solutions we may see. In the end, the survey felt more like something asking us about how we feel about the school, and nothing to do with school closures or consolidations and what we're actually going to have to live through. Nothing actually put a spotlight on what is actually important or at stake right now, and it felt misleading. Now they get to say they did a survey, but it wasn't about what it actually should have been about. We've been showing up every day doing what we can to help. I've gone to Harrisburg with other students to talk to legislators several times in the last year. I've gone to almost every town hall and input session, and we've spoken at way too many public hearings. We have been showing up over and over and over, but we feel like you guys don't even care about what we have to say. You guys are sitting around making all these decisions, but we are the ones that have to live through the consequences, not you. The worst thing that happens to you is someone disagrees with you or doesn't like you anymore. It's our actual future on the line. You should have talked to us first and at every step along the way. We may not be able to help with some big stuff like budgets or contracts. I can barely calculate area and I can't always negotiate better deals on chores with my parents, but we can tell you what we want for our futures. We can tell you our concerns about being on buses for hours, a day of fear about riding PRT alone. We can tell you what it's like to walk past places that aren't safe and other things that the district should be asking us all along. We can share our experiences at PPS and our dreams for our futures. We've been telling you these things and more for months and months and months, but you aren't actually listening. Why should we show up for you when your actions show you aren't showing up for us? Like I said, I don't believe you. You aren't listening. A vote on any resolution to start school closures before talking to all of us will just prove it again.
Thank you for your testimony. And now, Valerie Webb-Almond.
Hello again. Like so many others, I'm frustrated with the fact that the virtual option has not yet been restored. Jean, you told a reporter that, quote, we prioritize what's important and that if, quote, it's important, we'll figure out a way. How dare you? You implied that this isn't important if we can't be here in person. You're the one that made this decision behind closed doors and made it literally impossible for people to participate no matter how important it is to them. How is a mother supposed to choose between being here and their child's dialysis? How is a parent supposed to cancel their child's softball game because they have to be here instead of coaching it? How are students and community members that can't write supposed to participate if they can't speak in person? How are we supposed to be here if there's no transportation to get here, or even how are we supposed to park if there isn't parking for all of us? How dare you? First, full stop on that. How dare you? And just for your understanding, I did end up catching COVID, either here or at the information center in the north side. That thing, yeah, so that was great, because you know what? Immunocompromised people like me risk a lot more to be here in person because we know that you're not reading all of the testimonies. We aren't dumb, and it's actually an additional burden that not all of you have time to do. So be realistic and reinstate the virtual option. Don't be offended and whine about people holding you accountable, just be accountable. Now, the second issue that I want to address is the lack of time and support that you're giving the community members that are trying to put together a community-led plan. You are absolutely able to give support and some data to parents if you would just release the info and allow more time to develop. My concern is that many of you are telling parents that there won't be a vote until at least January, but that isn't really real either, is it? You know that you have to vote on a resolution to close schools much sooner than that vote in February or later to close school. You also are neglecting to tell parents that you don't have to vote to change the configuration of a school or to consolidate them, just like what happened to Oliver and Roosevelt. You haven't been transparent with the timeline in respect to the budget. You know that the budget is voted on in December. You're already working on drawing it up. So how much will you be listening to us if you vote on the resolution to start a school closure process or begin planning any reconfigurations or consolidations in a matter of a few weeks? You know you guys don't want to pass a deficit budget, and after you pass a budget, you won't shuffle the money around because you can't. You can't just shuffle the money around. That isn't how it works. So be honest with yourself and with us. If you don't make any real changes until you start talking to us, work with us. We are here to help. We are screaming at the top of our lungs every month.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Holly Munson.
Hi, I'm Holly. I'm a PPS parent, and I also worked with some of my friends at 412 Justice to create a website where you can read a plain language explanation of the FU plan. You can find that at pittsburgh-parents.com. Board members, as you know, you made a commitment to follow a code of ethics, which includes, quote, promoting public education as a keystone of democracy, unquote. The state of democracy has never been more precarious, and as an average person, we often feel powerless to make a difference. Board members, right now you are in a position to make a great deal of difference for this good city and for generations to come. I ask you to make the right kind of difference. Please vote no on this FU plan and join the loud, clear call of your constituents in demanding a plan that makes things better, not worse. Vote no on any school closure plan until Superintendent Dr. Walters and ERS provides data, evidence, and research with sources, not just theory and empty promises. Transparently shares the cost of the plan, a comprehensive plan for transportation, English learners, special education, career and technical education, seeks true community input, not farcical fake town halls, conducts an equity audit, and uses plain language to explain this plan in a way anyone can understand. The FU plan drastically shrinks the number of public schools and creates education deserts throughout the city. Superintendent Dr. Walters, who has not given me eye contact yet, you have promised that consolidation means the district can invest more in the remaining schools. Still no eye contact, love that. But that is an empty promise. This plan defies common sense. The reality is, it doesn't matter if this mystical, magical school you've described has amazing community services, because that school will not exist in many Pittsburgh neighborhoods where your pet plan proposes shutting down schools. At best, the FU plan is sloppy and defeatist. At worst, this is a cynical scheme to disinvest in public schools and therefore disinvest in democracy and equal rights. Dear board, you can't deny the district's own history and America's own history. From previous school closures, we know this will not save money. This will disproportionately impact Black and brown and disabled and poor students. This will result in further decline of public school enrollment and roll out the red carpet for charter schools to take their place. One reason that shift would be bad for families and communities is that charter schools have a consistent track record of pushing out students with disabilities, and Pennsylvania has a notoriously bad oversight and accountability for charter schools. So families will have fewer and worse options, not more and better options for the education of their children. The turnout at the regional input session should show you that if we actually had a dialogue with each other instead of—
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your testimony. And next we'll have Lars Munson.
Hi, my name is Lars. I graduated from 5th grade at Wilson, and now I'm a 6th grader at Schiller. It's really fun. This is my 4th time speaking at the board meeting. Like I said before, I want to tell you that this plan is bad for kids. Wilson and Schiller are special schools, and I like that they're not too big. Arsenal is special to my friends Jose and Andres. All the other schools are special to a lot of other kids. It seems like you're shutting down schools so there are less schools for you to work on. And I get it. I hate working. Also, but it's still a bad idea, especially for me. Also, I would not be excited to have a longer bus ride. No one is. My bus rides are always eventful, such as the time it sideswiped a car and how it goes over the curbs a lot. Please listen to us. Vote no on closing schools. Bye.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kara Britannic.
My name's Kara Britannic, and I'm the parent of a kindergartner at Pittsburgh Montessori. Throughout this process, you've asked us to think about the larger vision of the schools our children need in Pittsburgh, not just what we want for our own children. I think it's safe to say that we're all committed to creating safe and effective learning environments that ensure equitable access to high-quality education for all students, as well as creating vibrant community hubs that enhance equity and help to eliminate disparities. However, the proposals that we've seen thus far only offer boilerplate consolidation and realignment, which will only lead Pittsburgh down the path of more charter schools and less community engagement in our public schools and may exacerbate underlying challenges. Much of my husband's work centers around quality improvement and helping organizations run more efficiently. And one thing I've learned from him is the importance of root cause analysis, defining the problem, collecting and analyzing the data, and really honing in on the underlying issues in order to create long-term solutions. Has the district done this work, or the consultants? From my perspective, it feels like the why has shifted from budgetary constraints to declining enrollment to improving student outcomes, all of which have different solutions. Tonight, I'd like to focus on declining enrollment. The current proposal gives us no assurance that it will solve the problem, and we must understand why families are leaving the district and address those issues beginning in preschool. Otherwise, any facilities plan is likely to fail. Working parents need reliability and consistency in their schools so that they can do their own jobs. This district made the choice to invest in preschool because it has clear benefits for students' long-term success. However, preschool students are not eligible for bus service, and many of the ECE programs do not offer before and after care. This results in parents not using these options because they can't get off work in time to pick up their kids. Currently, the district contracts out these programs at most facilities, and many don't have capacity to meet demand. What we need is a detailed plan that includes consistent transportation, appropriate start and end times that meet the needs of students, teachers, and families, and available before and after care to promote equity. My family moved to Pittsburgh almost 3 years ago, and aside from having some family that lives in Squirrel Hill, another big draw for us were the K-5 magnet programs that are offered. You've also heard from countless other families that they value having some choice in where they send their kids to school. That really means that PPS must compete with charter and private schools across the district, many of which are more convenient for parents and caregivers now that they're zoned neighborhood schools due to previous school closures. Themed schools like the Magnets offer comprehensive educational enhancement plans that are more easily tailored to address the diverse needs of educators and students. When teachers are in a school with a defined pedagogical approach, they have clear reasons to collaborate to build a more well-rounded environment for the students. Instead of eliminating Magnets, let's study the successful neighborhood programs within PPS, transform our current Magnets into neighborhood Magnets, and streamline the application process for equity. By addressing these points, we can create a plan that truly serves our community and keeps families in PPS.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we'll have Elizabeth Malone.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Beth Malone. I am a Bloomfield resident and a proud parent of a kindergartner at Pittsburgh Montessori. I would like to continue to discuss the impact of Montessori and magnet programs in PPS elementary and middle schools. You know, many Montessori families, we like to share a proposal and a plan that focuses on Montessori because that is what grounds our experiences here in PPS. While firmly committed to Montessori, we equally support the expansion of other magnet programs, including the arts, STEM, STEAM, and languages at both elementary and middle school levels. We believe these programs can significantly enhance our city's educational landscape, creating a more engaging and well-rounded learning environment for all PPS students. You know, Montessori's consistent wait list, it does speak volumes about its reputation as a successful school. The Montessori pedagogy fosters that unique learning environment that empowers students to engage deeply with their education. But, you know, standardized test scores, you know, they're not the sole indicator of student success, but Montessori also consistently outperforms the district averages. So instead of dismantling these types of successful programs, the district should leverage its expertise to expand Montessori and other magnet programs throughout the neighborhoods in Pittsburgh Public Schools, providing more and more students the opportunities to benefit from an innovative approach to learning. Now, the Montessori method of education, it's based on having classrooms with students of multiple ages working together and learning from each other. Early childhood is deeply incorporated into the school model, despite that not being accounted for in the capacity calculations for the district. This school is a pre-K-5 school because of how integrated early childhood is to the program. You know, there are many inequities at Pittsburgh Montessori, as well as the other magnets too. We are well aware of that. And there are ways to solve these. By naming them, we can address them. For example, Despite being admitted to pre-K 3 and 4 to Montessori, many working-class families opt out due to logistical challenges that prevent them from attending or completing the application process. The lack of bus services, the limited available before and after care programs. These are barriers that prevent people from being able to accept positions at these schools. You know, these equity problems can be addressed. Dealing with the early elementary needs, dealing with buses and transportation. This is how to do it, as well as doing neighborhood magnet programs and providing opportunity for neighborhood students to have an opportunity to get into.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Darlene Yanakos.
Hello, thank you, Dr. Walters, Mr. Walker, and board members. My name is Darlene Yanakos, a lifelong Northsider with a kindergartner in Montessori. At its current location, the Montessori school should draw many more students from the adjacent Garfield neighborhood, an historically Black neighborhood, which has also seen school closures in the past. This part of the East End has changed a lot since the school was moved to its current location. Magnet programs in Pittsburgh were designed to help integrate the city's schools. We should continue to have that as a mission and reserve some spots in the school for students from any part of the district. The Montessori school promotes the culture of peace and responsibility through its grace and courtesy skills, and a motto of respect for ourselves, respect for others, and respect for the environment. We call them the 3 Ups. This results in reduced incidents of conflict and need for discipline. When children learn these kinds of conflict resolution skills at a young age and see their educators model them, they carry the skills through life. This is not to suggest a magic cure for discipline problems, but it's a clear path for reducing future conflicts. The district has made a commitment to restorative justice practices that educators report have so far been under-supported by the district. As you look to implement a unified safety plan, Montessori practices should be incorporated across our elementaries, as I've suggested before. While the approach may not be for every family, Montessori is a successful model and should be available in more places. The district should add additional pre-K through 5 Montessori programs on the north and west sides. As current students move into these new programs, it would make more space in the current school for a broader range of neighborhood students to join. This year, the district should focus on updating the magnet application process to make it easier to complete and thus more equitable. PPS should also invest in the training and support requests made by the educators so they feel supported and are more likely to stick around. This is true of educators addressing students with special needs and those at other magnet programs, but really throughout the district. PPS is the 2nd largest district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we can be an example of excellence if we are truly thinking of making decisions that are in the best long-term interest of our students. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Carrie Thompson.
Hi, I'm Carrie Thompson, the parent of a 1st grader at Pittsburgh Montessori. The district's teachers and other educators should be more rigorously engaged in the process of redesigning our school system. The board conducted an employee engagement survey last year, but seemed to regard those results as separate from the current work to reimagine the district. Our teachers should have a more inclusive role in designing future programs. They can see what works and what doesn't, and would be the ones implementing new programs. We need more of their leadership in this process because one missing component from the current proposal is any kind of pedagogical logic to it. Space shapes the learning that happens, and without a clear plan for the pedagogical approach that will happen, school closures and refurbishments cannot be done adequately and certainly not in a fiscally responsible way. Without teacher input, you cannot meaningfully strategically evaluate school spaces for modern learning and working environments. You must slow down this process to allow for their input. Then next year, the district should start this remodeling process, especially of elementary schools that are currently slated for closure in each of the different geographies, and continuing off of themes started by some other parents. Of course, updating them for accessibility, ventilation, cooling, all of those things can be done with grant money. This is not a thing that involves our current budget. Meanwhile, work with current teachers at the different magnet programs to design ways to expanding them, including current Montessori teachers on a plan to implement Montessori methods across different elementary schools, and recruit certified Montessori teachers from other areas to open in the 2026-27 school year. This kind of forward-looking approach, rooted in a pedagogy that's attractive to many families, will bring them back to the district. Planning for this increase should include a new Montessori middle school sometime in the 29-30 or 30-31 school year. Montessori middle schools offer programs that heavily draw on themes about nature and the environment, which would be an excellent complement to other kinds of programs currently offered by the district, and this used to be offered by PPS. Such a planned expansion should be slated for an area currently projected to experience closure, or in a neighborhood that has already seen one in the past, but where the district still owns property. Additionally, planning for growth and scalable pathways will keep families invested in PPS. It will also help our city plan for the growth that will come to our area under climate change. I acknowledge that opening a new Montessori school is an expensive endeavor. When students show up to Pittsburgh Montessori, all they need is a backpack, water bottle, and sneakers on gym days, perhaps a pair of headphones for the district's computers. That's the case because Montessori classrooms have everything students need when they enter, which is an aspect of Montessori that should build equity in the classrooms if we allow it to. This method was designed originally for
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Noah Ulrich. I'll call again, Noah Ulrich. We're going to keep moving. Next speaker is James Fogarty. James Fogarty. We'll keep moving. Our next speaker is Melinda Mix.
Hello. 4 weeks ago, I stood right here and I said to you, quote, "We ESL teachers believe that we must improve services for English learners, and included in the PPS school portfolio should be a newcomer academy." I described how districts of similar size have established newcomer academies for their most high-need and at-risk English learners. I don't know what you've been doing since then, because no one has reached out to us to discuss our ideas or ask about challenges we've been facing. At the 7 meetings I've attended, we've heard from you that a newcomer academy can't happen because there aren't enough students. It's too hard. It's unnecessary. Here's what I've been doing for the last 4 weeks. I've been trying to get to know my new students. My K-8 school has had 10 newcomer students register in September. This is in addition to 13 students that were already attending, including 7 newcomers. This school has never before had many English learners, and most of the staff has no experience and no training. But now they have 23 students speaking 7 languages. What do I know about these 10 newly registered students? They are 3 families that speak 3 different languages. The people of their 3 countries have experienced war, genocide, and displacement. All 10 kids grew up in refugee camps, and some were born there. 7 of them arrived in this country within the last 5 months. They are in 7 different grade levels. The 2 second graders have never attended any school. 4 of them are completely illiterate in any language, including an 11-year-old. Have you considered how difficult it is to teach an illiterate 6th grader to read in a second language that they don't yet speak? I know it's difficult because I've done it before. We expect that it will be years before these children are anywhere close to meeting grade level standards. Now think about all the newcomer students we have throughout the district, many of them also in schools without enough support. In 6 or 8 years, you're going to be asking, Why are there so many English learners scoring poorly on PSSAs and Keystones, not exiting the ESL program, not graduating? I can tell you why right now, because right now you see the numbers, you know the students are coming, and you are not planning for them. This is the reality today in one school. I am assigned to 3 schools. How can I even see all these students? How can I guide all these teachers? How can I support all these families? I do my best with what you've provided, and every day it breaks my heart a little more. These families have experienced unimaginable trauma and literal hell on earth, and this is the best we can do. This is equity.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we will have Katie Hoover. A second call for Katie Hoover. We'll keep moving. Jamie Hansen.
Hi, my name is Jamie Hansen. I'm a parent of a PPS kid. I'm also a professor at the University of Pittsburgh. I was born in Philadelphia, but don't hold that against me. Clearly, there's a lot of difficult and complex decisions in front of the board. There are potentially deficits, there are potentially the impacts of aging buildings, and there are challenges with equity. I think especially when there are tough decisions to be made, we ideally need 2 things. We need trust and we need data. Now clearly, the animosity in this room and all of the public hearings that have happened around this city clearly illustrate that there's no trust. I'm sorry to say. Good leaders show communities that they have good intentions and they make policies based on data. This proposal has neither, and I'd urge the board to vote against it. Clearly, there's no data. I've actually emailed and discussed and reached out to ERS researchers because I myself am a researcher and a data scientist. And one of the ERS consultants failed to discuss and respond. I don't think that researcher owes me anything, but I think they owe the board something. They owe the board estimates of enrollment changes, revenue drops, cost for busing. None of that is present in this proposal, despite it being in the contract clearly outlined. I think because of that, the board needs to vote no. Given the lack of trust and the lack of data, this is just really a terrible set of recommendations. I was actually a guest of the board at an education event. I was invited by the board to talk about the impact of the learning sciences, what I study, may have and can tell us about the district. But one thing I think about is that none of these things are being used. We're not using data. And one thing I also think about leadership is good leaders know when to underscore and to admit when they've made a mistake. And I think it's very clear that this board has made a mistake. ERS is a terrible consultancy that has provided no data, no recommendations with clarity, and I would urge the board to take the courageous step of voting no. And I say this as someone who has come here and previously talked to you guys in terms of service and education. I was at an August meeting, August 2023. Check the tape. So just vote no, because I think there's no trust. This is going to further disenfranchise and piss off people, and there's no data. So I can't understand why we would potentially do this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Teresa Camerata.
Hello, my name is Teresa Camerata, and I'm speaking on behalf of Whittier Elementary. Whittier Elementary is high atop Mount Washington and is a gem of a school in the city. Not only does it have name recognition in our neighborhood, but it is also excelling in the PSSA scores, has decreased its chronic absenteeism by half, is safe with less than 1% suspensions, has consistently increased its capture rate with a diverse population averaging 50% non-white, and has happy teachers with over 25 years of experience that have stayed at Whittier for a majority of that time. Closing Whittier and dividing us into 2 schools with vastly different statistics from each other is a terrible idea. Doing so would defeat the purpose of keeping students enrolled in PPS. This will only increase the problem for low enrollment and deter families from moving or staying in our city and the neighborhood. This is a tremendous financial issue for the city and the district. Dividing our students into two schools that are both 3 miles away without easy public transit from two different cultures of education is not fair or equitable for our families. Our schools should be used as an example of what works rather than be shut down based on our enrollment numbers. Whittier has the capacity to add students from a fellow area school that is 2 miles away and can give many students in that sectioned off area a high-level education in a safe and loving environment. We already have a science, art, and music teacher and dedicated classrooms for them. Our PTO and Whittier families help fill the gap with bringing in volunteers like therapy dogs, educational resources, and community events without relying on the PPS budget. PPS should be looking at more than just the numbers and look at the real value of the shining schools in this area. The district should be promoting and elevating good examples like ours and extrapolate our work into other schools. Has PPS given the success rate of ERS to us families? Are they actually good at what they do, or is this just a prolonged death of PPS? The district has repeatedly said that this transition isn't dollar-focused, but if money isn't the issue, closing schools that check every box doesn't make sense and seems like a distraction from the larger issues. Someone will lose, and it feels like a setup to pit parents, schools, and communities against each other. The emotional trauma of losing beloved schools hurt not only the students, but the families, neighborhoods, and the teachers' careers. There are financial impacts in these areas too. There is a bigger picture here, and we would like PPS to play the long game rather than cut corners by shuttering education institutions that are making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Kim Bilhausen.
Good evening, Board of Directors and Central Office Administration. Last month, I spoke to the value and importance of creating a newcomer academy for English learners in the district. Learning another language to cognitive academic language proficiency takes time. The estimate among most researchers is 5 to 7 years. For those students with interrupted formal education who may not have acquired literacy in their native language, the timeline is longer. There are many important factors to make this work possible, but tonight I want to focus on the invaluable work teachers and staff receive from the English Language Development Department's Educational Assistants 3. Our EA3s work closely with staff in the building to support the education of our English learners. For most of our ELD EA3s, English is not their native language. Regardless of native language, they have all spent years developing their multilingualism, which is an incredible asset to the school communities that they work in. Compensate this skill accordingly in their contract. At Brashear, in the 2023-2024 school year, our EA3s received and completed over 350 requests from teachers to communicate with students' homes. This does not count the infinite number of times that they are called down to student services, security, the nurses' suite, the main office, to assist with interpreting for students and families. They are pulled in every direction and do so graciously, but their frustration is growing, and so is mine. Their primary role is in the classroom. According to a current job posting, the summary description states, the ESL Educational Assistant 3 will support instructional activities in both the ESL classroom and mainstream as appropriate with teacher guidance. Yet our EA3s are pulled weekly, often daily, out of the classroom to deal with other matters, health, disciplinary, enrollment issues within the school. Teachers cannot plan on their regular presence and assistance because of these frequent interruptions, almost all amounting to a need for their multilingualism. Furthermore, among the 10 essential functions listed include 1, supervises and assists students in the completion of their assignments. 2, monitors students in the classroom at lunch and at recess, as well as in transit from another area. 3, assists with the implementation of the individual educational plans, IEP, and behavior management plans for each student. 4, assists in development and evaluation of educational materials. 5, assists in completion of all clerical duties. 6, assists with student transportation, such as meeting a cab outside. 7, assists in the maintenance and care of equipment. 8, assists in the manipulation of instructional materials. 9, assists on field trips. 10, assists in keeping students clean. 11, assists students with toilet needs, feeding, and in physical movement. Now, I've been at Eppershire for 13 years, and to my knowledge, our ELD EA3s do not help students with their toilet needs or feeding, nor do they assist in keeping students clean. Perhaps copying and pasting from the PSC EA3 role description is not helpful. Please work collaboratively to develop a job description.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Allison Patterson.
Sally Nuama dedicates her book, Closed for Democracy, How Mass School Closures Undermine the Citizenship of Black Americans, in part to the students who have been impacted by closure. She writes, quote, "I pray that your triumphs outlive your trauma, even if they may never repair them," end quote. She argues that the adverse effects begin when school closures are on the table and continue long after. School closure and consolidation plans themselves cause instability and distress to the most vulnerable students and disenfranchised people first. None of that is new, but she also shows what she describes as collective participatory debt. Families who lost their schools suffered, but families who kept their schools open considered it a Pyrrhic victory. People impacted directly and indirectly experienced decreased trust in democratic systems and public institutions, even when told the closures would be good for their children. One example, Pittsburgh-Linden IBPYP, my 5 children's former school serving a majority Black student population, having fought for years to come back from mismanagement and divestment, is listed on the, quote, clarifying PPS website to become a neighborhood school or become the displaced Montessori with no plan for phase out of the magnet and return of the students to their attendance zones, the building described as, quote, vacated. In the Montessori Move plan, students would have no choice to continue with their school community, an option afforded nearly every other student in the PPS FU plan, as bad as it is for everyone. Linden students and their families deserve at least as much consideration and have every right to mistrust the plan, the board, and the process because no one said, what about the kids already in that building? Mr. Walker's favorite axiom, learned from the Council of Great City Schools board training, student outcome-focused governance, is, quote, student outcomes don't change unless adult behaviors change, end quote. That's a message for board reorganization, board and administration, and teacher and staff relations, but it's been weaponized against parent and guardian advocacy. Some adult behaviors have changed. I've observed changes from a conscientious board willing to ask questions and answer concerns to insularity and evasiveness. Mr. Walker took personally my concern that the decision to remove the virtual accommodation for hearings was made in executive session. He did not appear to take it seriously. Board members certainly aren't asking good questions where the public can hear them do so regularly. Student outcomes will change when adults accept responsibility for their individual and collective choices in the light of day and speak about the impact of those choices. People lose trust in politicians, and appropriate as 2025 is coming, but cost in the trust of public schools isn't a cost that we should have to pay on your behalf, on your account. Some of you deserve a better legacy than this.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Gada Makoshi.
Aren't you all just tired? Tired of the constant complaints, tired of the lack of appreciation for the work you're doing, tired of public hearing testimonies, just tired of it all and wishing the elected position you ran for was easier? I get that, truly. But every single one of you ran for your position to represent your community, not to make unilateral decisions on their behalf. You were elected by the people to serve the people. So when these same people voice their concerns, they are the ones you should be listening to. I understand being tired. What I don't understand are secret backroom meetings where Gene Walker can unilaterally revoke the ability for parents and students to speak virtually at public hearings, even if they have a disability, get sick, work the late shift, or like me, have a child who undergoes dialysis on Mondays. afternoons. Instead, the public is told, we don't care if your child has a disability. Show up in person or not at all, as if the voices of those with disabilities don't matter. In fact, they matter so little that the consultants didn't even consider them in their scenarios. No meetings were held for parents and guardians of students with disabilities because it was deemed too complicated. We get it. Those of us with disabilities are an inconvenience to a school district that considers us last, if at all. But if you prioritize those most harmed by school policies, those who are so often forgotten or neglected, you'd already be halfway to solving problems that would benefit everyone. Students with disabilities are not an afterthought, and I am sick and tired of having to fight for the board to consider them as important as every other child in this district. Why aren't these hearings virtual, Gene Walker? Why did you remove that option without a public vote? Why have there been more and more backroom meetings and executive sessions and a shocking lack of transparency around everything the board and administration does? We, the people, elected this board to represent us. Do you think we don't care about the so-called achievement gap, which is really a resource and support gap? In what world would closing schools address that issue? What about the lack of support for students with disabilities? How will closing schools address those concerns? Are you planning to double the number of kids in each class and the number of teachers and paraprofessionals? Or will you simply increase class sizes and worsen the teacher-student ratio? Did your consultants provide you with any examples of districts that have improved after closing schools? Even one comparable district where students suddenly received more support and resources and academically improved? I'm guessing no. Just like everything else the consultants proposed, they didn't provide you with a single shred of research or an example of success. But in this world, paying a consultant $250,000 to propose a preposterous scenario and justify us with "trust us, bro," seems apropos for the times we're living in.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we will have Rita Porterfield.
Good evening, school board. As always, I do want to thank you for your time and apologize for how my short time allotments have sort of pushed me into a soundbite speaking takeaway sort of manner. I do genuinely respect and admire the expertise each one of you bring to the table, and I will lay some ideas on yours. First, bring back the virtual option. There's bare minimum legal compliance, and then there's best practices. Just be best. Returning to traditional grade groupings could be useful, especially separating 6 from 8 through 9 through 12. However, the current proposal for Kappa split fails to take into account how to work on and divide shared and very expensive equipment and what costs would be needed to upgrade any building appropriately to match the arts excellence there. Similarly, Carrick's tech focus would need to be upgraded, but any buildings aren't accounted for in their upgrade costs for this follow-up plan or facilities utilization plan. Any buildings that might need to be sold should be subjected to restrictive covenants to ensure buildings are not usurped by charter schools, because then we'll be paying someone else even more to pay for the buildings that we supposedly can't pay for to maintain in the first place. Likewise, if schools are converted into housing, then there should be covenants guaranteeing that the housing should be developed in such a way as to not dismantle the neighborhood. Family-size units, 3+ bedrooms, inclusionary zoning, accepting housing vouchers, etc. If there are community spaces like playgrounds, then there should be public easements granted and recorded. This can actually be done now, and I, for free, volunteer my legal services to you to do that. If schools need to be reconfigured, we should be more sensitive to how they integrate communities. For example, closing Manchester would displace Black students and staff. Moving Montessori to a less diverse area would skew the magnet program away from low-income families and students of color disproportionately. Clustering all ESL students into Brashear without putting in adequate supports does not make for broader cultural awareness throughout the student body. We also need to ensure that magnets are not used to perpetuate white or wealth flight, but as a helpful tool for parents to identify early, elementary, and easily the learning model that works best for their family, whether it's arts, labor, trades, public service, STEM, STEAM, Black studies, immersive language, or Montessori models. Lastly, and I can't emphasize this enough, don't use this plan to shortchange teachers, tutors, and staff in their upcoming contracts negotiations. We need to attract the highest performers, and pizza parties lose their charm after college. Instead, listen to the workers throughout the negotiations and give them everything you can to invest in them. Make special efforts to recruit from labor pools for a cultural add of excellence and not just a fit. And take restorative actions when teachers and parents speak up about poor leadership.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. And now we'll have Jude Porterfield.
Here are some things that do go together. Cheese and crackers, pencils and papers, maybe even footballs and wide receivers. Now things that don't go together. Maybe lawnmowers and short grass. Maybe wipes and a clean house. Oh, and two more things that don't go together. Friendship Montessori and Linden schools. If you don't understand my end point, that's okay. I'll explain it now. I don't want you to move Montessori. You are greater than this. This is an amazing magnet. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Jude Porterfield.
Thank you, Jude. And next we will have Erica Gidley.
Hi, I'm Erica Gidley. I'm a parent of a second grader and a rising kindergartner at PPS Arsenal K through 5. Two quick things. Please bring back the virtual comments. I am missing a soccer game right now for my second grader, which is like an enjoyable thing, but there are a lot of people with like a lot of bigger reasons to not be here right now. They might be working and able to scooch off and give a comment. Please bring those back. Also, if we could figure out an alternative way for the heat advisory for the closures of schools on the days that it's too warm. I know that it was a Hail Mary to do the half days the first week of school. However, that for me personally, that did actually work better as a working parent. But I'm not the only person to give opinion on that. Please get more opinions. So my main thing is I urge the board to vote no on any resolution to close any school or change any programming until there is more information. There is not enough information to show closing any schools and programs is necessary right now. There is a lot of information to show that this is not a good plan. Why are the ESL students shifted around like an afterthought when they are the main growing population in this district? Don't shuttle this community around because they're quiet. Instead, why are they quiet? It is because there has been an abysmal attempt at community outreach by the district and ERS. It is because translators need to be requested. Please assume that families who have children that qualify for ESL services need translators. It's better to be safe than sorry. Will this plan put PPS closer to equitable education? Will this close a complaint filed in 1992 to the PA Human Resources Commission that the educational outcome for Black and brown students is lower than their white counterparts? This complaint is almost old enough to run for president, and I think it will stay open because why are 2 majority Black schools slated to close to make room for magnets that are majority white? Why is PPS willing to break apart neighborhood schools to bus students across town? Which brings me to my next point. How is PPS confident that transportation plans will work with mega schools that are further apart when it doesn't work now? Why can't there be more time to propose additional plans? I urge the board to vote no on any resolution to close any schools and to change any programs until there is more information. We have time. It's okay. We can do this in an equitable way.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker this evening is Michael Cummings.
Good evening. My name is Mike Cummins, I'm a parent of a PPS first grader and hopefully a kindergartner next year. First, I'd like to address the removal of the virtual option at these hearings. This excludes many of the same people that poor decisions from PPS have harmed the most for so many years from coming here and giving their voice. People with some privilege like myself can make it work despite being highly inconvenient, but many literally cannot make this work, and this is actively shutting out their voice. That's not fair. Mr. Walker, you made comments, this has been brought up, I'm glad to hear at least 3 times tonight, made a comment to WSA. I quote, "We all prioritize what's most important, and if it's important, we will figure out a way," end quote. This lays a heavy to impossible burden on our already most vulnerable and burdened populace. I call this back to you, the board. If hearing from the already marginalized communities, you know that equity thing we keep talking about in this plan, right, was actually important to you, you would immediately reinstate this hybrid option and hear from this community. To not do so totally undermines any claim that this plan that you're proposing is about equity. Speaking of equity, excellence, and financial efficiency that we talk a lot, these things take a lot of time and a lot of careful and detailed planning. Rushing the process will only ensure that we achieve none of those goals adequately, and they are great goals, so let's take our time and do them right. I think the most successful school programs we will ever see have 3 things in common. They're rooted in 3 things: student excitement, right, and meeting their needs and their interests, community buy-in and active involvement from the community and parents and other stakeholders, and dedicated staff and teachers who will implement that with passion because they've bought into the plan. Top-down planning, like this seems to be, may work for some demographics. It works for mine in most cases, but it's rarely effective for our most marginalized communities. Your PPS community right over here and many other people are working tirelessly to try to give you other alternatives than this plan from ERS. There is an alternative framework that's being put together that is really about buying in with the community and then taking that to develop those other 3 points, bringing in all of those inputs from different PPS stakeholders to create a plan that is equitable, that is excellent. And at the end of the day, equitable and excellence is what will solve our problems with our finances, because it will keep people in our district, it will bring people back in.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Holly Cox.
Good evening. My name is Holly Cox, and I am the parent of an 8th grader at Kappa and a class of 2021 Obama graduate. Both of my children went to Pittsburgh Linden for elementary school. Our family's been in the district since 2008, and particularly since the budget cuts of 2011, we've been there as Linden has weathered lots of changes. Some of them have been positive, many have been hurtful to the school community. It's not news. One can look at the continuing decline in enrollment to know that there have been issues, and it's a shame because my children had very good experiences there. The teachers, the current principal, the families, the building and the grounds are all great and an asset to our neighborhood. Presently, the building is slated to become the new home of Montessori. And if Linden doesn't become a neighborhood school, the plan is that not only will it become the new Montessori, but as soon as next fall, the current students will be sent back to their home schools. They will not be offered a spot at Montessori, and they were told that this is because non-Montessori students haven't learned the Montessori way and so won't be able to function in a Montessori school. At best, this underestimates Linden students, and at worst, a majority white school kicking a majority black population out of their current building without offering them spots looks suspect. If Linden becomes the new Montessori, the current Linden students and families deserve to have spots offered to them. These are exceptional times. Not offering spots to these families shows a lack of respect and care for all of our PPS families, and it makes it seem that some PPS families are valued more than others. That's not the PPS that I want, and it's not the reason that my children are in public school. Also, a quick note as a Kappa parent, for the same reasons I do not believe it is in the best interest of anyone to move the Kappa Middle School to Manchester. The families in Manchester also deserve to keep their neighborhood school, and they deserve better investment in their neighborhood school as well. I had a lot more to say about Linden, but maybe I'll come back next month and bring that then. I was reached out to by teachers and families who can't be here tonight, but they want you to know that they really want to stay in their building, and they love the families, and they love the building, and they love being there. Their concerns are basically the concerns of everyone around the district, and they are very valid. School communities are panicked, and the plan is moving really fast. It feels like that to a lot of people. It feels like it's moving, and people are not even sure about when votes are taking place, and it's confusing, and things like transparency and plain language and data and feeling heard would go a long way. And lots of other people here tonight said it better than I have. So thank you very much for your time, and slow things down, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Ms. Paulette Foster.
Behave myself. Okay, first of all, as it has already been shared, to bring back the option of speaking online. There are times when you all are also at home watching from your homes. Why is it not the opportunity for our parents who have children who are themselves are trying to be parents? They want to be able to nurture at home as opposed to coming out here. I am tired. I'm tired because we had to work all day, come here, and then still hold a rally in front of our central office. So instead of making a determination based on your own selfish needs, you should consider the well-being of our members and your community members. So I want to thank the community allies for showing up. We have had, for the past 16 months, been a part of conversation with communities since May of 2023, and here we are in September 2024. And we are still strung along, asking to be a part of the FU plan, which will create an education desert in some of our communities. The need for this plan to be clear is for students who receive special education services. They need to make sure that their regional classrooms and autism support is already in place. We need to have our nurses, we need to have our social workers, we need to have our librarians, we need to have everything that they need so that they can feel comfortable in this transition. We know it's going to happen. We just want to make sure that when they enter into that space, they find peace. Because having to deal with this in a manner that I know for firsthand is very difficult. I had to take my nephew to the school that he was supposed to go to. Then I got a letter 2 days before school started that he was not going to that school. That brings confusion and frustration. We need to make sure that our ELS students community is well resourced and have the understanding of what's needed. A lot of this information has been shared before. I don't need to reinvent the wheel or put anything new to it. Just put some air in it and shine it up. Make it worth the time that these parents and community members are doing to come together. And I'm going to leave you with this last piece. As Diana Ross would say, stop in the name of love before you close our schools. Think it over. I'll leave you with that. Thank you. That's Ms. Paulette Foster, and I approve this message.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Foster. And next, we will have Jaslyn Worthy.
So before I get started, I would like to shout out Miss Erica Gandy right there and Mercedes Williams for the Parent University. It was dope, girl, and I'm grateful to have been able to participate, connect, and learn, so thank you very much. All right, not a real business. After, and attending the community input sessions, I came to the realization that this proposal wasn't constructed with everything it needs to ensure its success. When you set goals, when anyone sets a goal, do they not do their due diligence to understand what needs to be done to achieve it? Black, economically disadvantaged students and students with disabilities are disproportionately impacted by the proposed school closures. Is it this district's job to make educating these groups of children more difficult? Equity this, equity that, and if the goal is to offer individualized support to students, why was some barriers and the potential outcomes of these changes not addressed at the town halls or included in a proposal from the jump? I'll give you all an example, transportation. What can we take an educated guess at and assume will happen? If these babies have to leave where they live to attend a school in another neighborhood, the bus times increase, and that's if we have people to actually drive them, considering there is a shortage on bus drivers. So now, you not only want to make it hard for the students, but their parents as well. Not only can they not speak at the public meetings virtually anymore, this proposal aims to make engagement, participation, and volunteering in their child's designated school difficult as well. That's just one barrier. No one should be under the impression that enough time, options, and research has gone into this proposal to make the decision to start the process of closing these schools. We understand that changes need to be made. Changes that are equal across all schools. For example, and don't insult me or any other Black or brown parent by voting to move forward with the suggestion to let Montessori keep their magnet status. Come on now. We all know the demographics of that school, and yet this suggestion is somehow going to move PPS in the right direction. Changes that are equal across all students. For example, the Gifted Center. Any particular reason why that was left out? Should I start throwing around them numbers as well? We don't know how much this is going to cost. We don't know, how this is going to impact the students' experience. We don't know how this will impact staff. We don't know how it will affect transportation. Can this plan guarantee that charter and private schools won't occupy these buildings in the future? If it was done right before, we wouldn't be here. So can rushing this process guarantee anything but failure? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Worthy, for your testimony. And also thank you for the shout out. Next, we will have Ms. Emily Sawyer.
Good evening. I am going to start with a little time traveling this evening. These are all quotes. So from the late 1960s, when busing was even suggested, white parents went bonkers. They were going to remove their kids from the school system. They were going to sue. They were going to write their congressman. White parents would not allow it to happen. From 1979, you ain't busing my children from Overbrook and Carrick all the way across town. If you think they had it bad in Boston, you ain't seen nothing yet. From 1980, Greenfield Elementary was supposed to go from about 4/5 white to half white and half black. But so many white parents pulled their kids from the school that Greenfield ended up almost 75% black. When we, people who look like me, white and privileged, stand in meetings and say, white people will leave the district, always as though we aren't the white people and seemingly not realizing that we could just stay. Or wealthy people will just put their kids in private school. We are making ourselves part of that same thread. A long line of white and privileged people who have threatened to or actually abandoned the public education system when it didn't cater to them exactly as they wanted it to. It doesn't really matter if we're talking about busing or magnet schools, it's the same thread. PPS's 2023 equity audit states, quote, MGT, that's the consultant hired to do that audit, would suggest that modern issues contributing to disparities include white flight and white populations taking their money and investing it in private schools. Pittsburgh is over 70% white. However, PPS is majority African American. Is this what we want to continue to be a part of? As a city, a school district, and as a society, we cannot continue to make our decisions based on folks who behave this way. And if we are those folks, we need to begin to make different choices. Board President Gene Walker likes to remind us that, quote, student outcomes don't change unless adult behaviors change, and this will have to include our decisions as white and privileged parents and guardians about what schools our kids will go to, what conversations we will have with our kids about those choices, and what messages those choices send to our kids and other people's kids without us saying a thing. The recurring idea that excellence would be removed from schools if magnets close is offensive and biased. No one is suggesting that we dumb down our educational system or lower everyone by discontinuing elementary magnets or making magnets more equitable. This implies that other kids who attend regular schools deserve a level of education that absolutely terrifies us when we imagine it applied to our own kids. If that is the case, then why have we allowed it to exist for anyone's kids for so long? Why did it take a threat to our beloved magnet schools to get so many of us out here? If we are going to have magnet schools, then we must be intentional in creating policies for magnet schools that center equity and access. Without thoughtful, strong guide rails to make enrollment more equitable, the status quo will prevail. Dr. Walters is fond of reminding us that as a district, quote, we need to move from pockets of excellence to a district of excellence. Our solution to a lack of opportunity cannot be a few more
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Dr. Ron Sofa.
Good evening. When the district started the right sizing in 2006, closing 22 schools that abandoned predominantly black communities from their neighborhood schools and sent them to schools that were not of better quality or welcoming. Many families with school-aged children on the north side, Hazelwood, and the East End chose to support the creation of what they believed to be quality, safe, and family-friendly charter schools that ended up with significantly larger student enrollments than the schools that were closed in those neighborhoods. Let's remember that it was Pittsburgh Public School that decided to segregate the district when they began to eliminate magnets and move to K-8 schools. The district's restructuring needs to address the historically validated fact that Pittsburgh needs to do schools differently if it's to hold and attract current and new students to the district. The primary question that requires clear and detailed answer is, what is going to change in the schools that remain in the restructured districts with regards to their teaching and learning cultures that will have a high probability to improve learning outcomes for black students and other students groups that have been underserved by the district for decades? What's the plan to make the remaining schools better? Here are some core recommendations. Pre-K in all elementary schools with before and after school childcare, a full-time nurse, social worker, and a librarian. Provide a quality breakfast and lunch program. Hire and support quality school leaders and let them stay in the school and community for at least 5 to 10 years with a faculty that stays with the same students for multiple years. Moving students to different equitable resource buildings with the same programs is not going to cut it. Current non-magnet schools attract less than 40% of the families that have eligible school-aged children to attend. What's the plan to improve the district's holding and attraction power to families with school-aged children? A better education for black as well as most other students needs to be measured with academic and behavior performance measures for students, teachers, principals, and schools as a unit of educational delivery with convenience to parents as only one factor in school quality and safety gradebook. Also, there needs to be a metric that measures central office support for quality, safe, and caring individual school cultures. Another source of data to inform the need to change with the restructured school districts, watch where parents send their children to school when given a choice. Parents don't gamble with their kids. The district needs to be wise not to do so as well. Its very existence depends upon it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. And this will conclude our testimonies for this evening. I want to ensure that everyone had a chance to speak, so I'm going to go through the list of ones who didn't get to speak quite yet or was not here. Tara Tucci Exilius, Kathleen O'Brien, Max Slater, Stephen Winslow, Noah Ulrich, James Fogarty, Katie Hoover. We thank all speakers for tonight, and I will turn this in the hands of Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Ms. Gandy, and thank you to everyone who came out tonight to testify in person and everyone who submitted their testimony in writing. We will adjourn for tonight, and we will see you all at the legislative meeting on Wednesday. Thank you.